falsifiability. Haldane said, well, show me rabbits' bones in the Jurassic layer, and I'll give up. Now, can you think of any religious spokesman you've ever heard who would tell you in advance what would disprove their hypothesis?
Well, it doesn't matter that the Bible has unfalsifiable claims, which I have proven anyway, because it isn't claimed to be a scientific explanation. And you haven't proven that only science can explain everything, or that science could explain everything, or should explain everything. You're just full of assumptions, atheists.
An infinitely elastic airbag.
An infinitely elastic airbag. Exactly. That's what your myth has for it. A rabbit in the Precambrian or such would not falsify the assumption of common descent. You would just have to change a trivial detail. Oh, rabbits are older than we thought they were. Then we assume they were. Then we assert that they were, because that's all you have is assertions. You never prove anything. And he's not even doing the asserting. He's just regurgitating the asserting, which is even worse.
Since the dates are subject to change anyway, a rabbit in the imaginary Precambrian would mean the assumed dates would have to be revised, or one could consider that aliens dropped off rabbits from the future into the past. Common descent is not empirically falsifiable and therefore is not science. Hitchens assumes that dates are objectively determined, but the video on how millions of years dates are lies shows that the establishment is wrong. Hitchens' premises are false, rendering his conclusion utter trash.
We are members, like it or no, of one race, the human race.
Yeah, and there's only one breed of dog. The only breed is called dog.
Nazis were macroevolutionists. Hitler followed Darwin, believe it or not. Of course, the school, I went to public schools, where they tried to make me an atheist. The indoctrination centers do that. They always hid the fact that Nazis were macroevolutionists. And why would they hide something so important as to show the Darwinian influence? It's because of their agenda to make us into atheists and not to tell us the truth. They're hiding the truth. Because then they undermine themselves when they say that Darwin had a scientific motivation. No, he had a racist motivation. IQ is stupid and racist. That's another thing that the establishment says is a real scientific thing, but it's not, and I proved it there. Darwin was right because mosquitoes bite chimps and humans in similar areas. So I refute more of that. More of those arguments for Darwin's shit. Darwin worshipped Satan. He was a self-styled Freemason, and so he was promoted because he was in the Brotherhood. You think he was the only one? He didn't even come up with that shit. His grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, did. It takes only 15 words to destroy Darwin. Pause to read if you want. Spaniard puts Englishman in his place. So this is another case of that, because he's a Brit and I'm Spaniard. Spain created the British Empire in the USA, by the way, refuting the claim that Brits were the best because their ex-colonies are richest, except the ones that aren't, of course. By the way. Celebrating the fall of the British Empire. Drool, Britannia. The origin of language, atheist lies versus the scriptures. Now this hypocrite said, take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. Really? That's ironic, since everything that you say, the TV has said. Everything that you say, the movies, Hollywood promotes. So you're not a free thinker, because everything you believed was taught by the Masonic establishments, the media, and the indoctrination centers called schools. Hitchens was a parrot, not a free thinker. Who is a real free thinker? Someone who once believed in dinosaurs, and then like 30 years later decided to question his belief and realized, hey, the world is wrong. There's no proof that the alleged fossils are real or interpreted accurately. Oh, so you think you can interpret better than scientists? Well, I'm a free thinker. Yes, of course I think that I can interpret better than people who expect me to take them at their word, but I won't do that anymore because I'm not a fool anymore. Yeah, I do think for myself. You have a problem with that? Of course you do. Psychiatry is another pseudo-scientific thing that atheists believe in general.
The concession now by every Israeli archaeologist, by the whole school now of Israeli archaeology, that the entire story of the Exodus, the captivity, the wandering, the conquest of Canaan and the rest of it, is also a complete fabrication. You will see a perfect collision between the two things that do allow us to make progress as scholars and intellectuals, the weighing of evidence against interest. And that the great school of Jewish archaeology, given every motive to find the contrary, giving every motive and every chance in the Sinai and in the region to dig up and find what David Ben-Gurion, the founding of the state, called the title deeds of Zionism, to come back empty-handed and say, we admit it, this story has no basis of any kind.
This is all part of Gibson's fevered imagination, and he does make it seem throughout as if Pontius Pilate is a humanitarian who is a mere serf in a Jewish empire. And actually, the Emperor Tiberius got rid of Pontius Pilate, among other things, for his brutality towards the Jews, which was considered excessive. So this is a simple-minded, claims to be literal-minded, is in fact a falsification.
The original collision between our reasoning faculties and any form of organized faith, this is my book, though it must have occurred before in the minds of many, is probably exemplified in the trial of Socrates in 399 BC. It does not matter at all to me that we have no absolute certainty that Socrates even existed. The records of his life and his words are second-hand, almost but not quite as much as are the books of the Jewish and Christian Bible and the hadiths of Islam. Philosophy, however, has no need of such demonstrations because it does not deal in revealed wisdom. Now, as it happens, we do have some very good descriptions of the life of Socrates that make his existence to me plausible, but it doesn't matter to me at all whether he was real or not. What matters is that someone advanced his method of reasoning, his testing of evidence against experience, his commitment to a certain kind of dialectical honesty, and that if it hadn't been him, it would have been someone else. So that's what's precious to me. And that he never said, you've got to believe in everything I say, or go to hell or heaven. Because, and here's why you've got to agree with me, because my mother never went to bed with anybody. And that proves the truth of what I say. Or by the way, I must have looked very dead when they took me down from the cross, but I didn't die. And that proves my point. I'm willing to grant it all. I'm willing to grant the Immaculate Conception first, then the virgin birth, then the resurrection, and the Annunciation and the Assumption. I'm willing to grant all of it. It doesn't prove the truth of the proposition that you should take no thought for the morrow. The central doctrine of Jesus of Nazareth, take no thought for the morrow. No investment, no thrift, no care for your children, that you should abandon your family, not worry about construction, about investment, about anything. Just follow me. A ridiculous and immoral proposition that, as C.S. Lewis so cleverly, and I must say for him, very honestly puts it, means that the man must either have been a maniac, a sick man, an evil man, or he must have believed that the world was coming immediately to an end, and that he was commanded to announce this fact to the deluded Bronze Age inhabitants of Palestine. Because if he didn't believe that, and if he didn't believe he was divinely mandated, he must be born in Bethlehem. Jesus of Nazareth is well known to have been born in Nazareth. In order to get him to Bethlehem, a huge fabrication has to be undertaken. A census is proposed by Caesar Augustus. No such census ever took place. The people of the region were not required to go back to their hometown to be registered. That's never happened. Quirinius was not governor of Syria in that year, as the Gospels say. None of the story of the Nativity is true in any detail, and not one of the Gospels agrees with each other on this fabrication. But the fabrication itself suggests something. If they were simply going to make up the whole thing, and there'd never been any such person,